Hi there, welcome to Geeks Cantina. My name is Geeks, and today I'm going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart, Star Wars. But more specifically, I'm going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars. Now, straight off the bat, straight away, when you see it, it's easy to mistake it as a cartoon and just intended for children. It is animated, so it's completely CGI animated. Has a very distinct visual style, which, yes, would certainly speak to a younger audience, but I can assure you the Clone Wars is not strictly for children. Now, the Clone Wars is 7 seasons of animated adventure that can be seen on Disney Plus, which is wonderful, I might add, and is set between Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And it follows Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and several other familiar faces and some unfamiliar, some new characters, as the Separatists and the Republic battle for power over the galaxy. And I'll be completely honest, when I first started watching it, there's a feature-length episode that starts it all off. I absolutely hated it. When it was just that one episode that they released it as a movie. All I knew were the movies, so the original trilogy and some of the prequel trilogy, and I absolutely hated it because I adore the Star Wars movies to bits, and I thought anything other than live action was sacrilege. However, upon a lot of viewing, and when they started releasing the actual seasons, the episodes, I started to realise that there is actually more to this than just a cartoon. One of the good things that the Clone Wars does actually do very, very well, it expands the story. As I said, it's set between episodes 2 and 3 during the Clone Wars. And if you see the movies, it basically, episode 2 is when the Clone Wars starts, and episode 3 is when the Clone Wars ends. And there's a number of years in between where you didn't see any of the fighting. You just saw the beginning and you saw the end. But and the Clone Wars series fits in nicely in between those two movies, and as I said, it expands the story in that it documents very, very well Anakin's rise to Jedi Knight, because he doesn't become a master. That's always a sore point for the fans, but also the events that lead up to his fall, because his fall to the dark side in episode 3 always seemed a little bit fast. But in the Clone Wars, it actually sows the seeds that turns Anakin slowly, very, very slowly, to the dark side. Now, Anakin Skywalker was obviously a character that we all know from the movies. If you're watching this, I assume you are a Star Wars fan, or at least you want to be a Star Wars fan. And so he's a character that everyone is very, very familiar with. But in the Clone Wars, yes, it does have the familiar faces like Skywalker and Kenobi and Yoda and Mace Windu and X amount of others, but there are some incredibly good and new characters in the series. There's Captain Rex, who is very quickly established as Skywalker's second in command. He's a loyal and successful soldier in the Grand Army of the Republic, and he's particularly one of my favourites. He has a very long and distinct character arc from the very first episode right the way to the finale. And let me just clarify, there is a clear beginning and end to the series. The first episode is the first big battle in the Clone Wars, and the end of the series actually ties in magnificently with Revenge of the Sith. I shan't dribble on about it too much, but it is absolutely incredible. And Rex is a recurring character through the whole series. Another one of my favourite characters is a recurring bounty hunter called Cad Bane, and he's hired on several occasions by the Separatists to undertake nefarious deeds by the bad guys, if they are bad guys. And that is one of the things that I like about the series, is that the war isn't black and white. There isn't necessarily good guys and bad guys. Sometimes the bad guys can seem good, sometimes the good guys can seem bad. Particularly the Jedi, by the end of the series, it really paints the Jedi in a shade of grey, rather than them being the pure, completely selfless warriors that they were once thought of. But probably my all-time favourite character that's come out of the Clone Wars is a character called Ahsoka Tano. Now, she first came into the movie episode, which starts the Clone Wars series off, and she is introduced as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan learner. Now, we all know, or those of us that have seen the prequel trilogy, know that there's no reference to Anakin having a Padawan learner. So having her introduced in the first episode of the series threw a bit of a monkey wrench in. So, how are they going to deal with this character? So that was a big question. And also, she was the most obnoxious little turd. She was irritating. So irritating to begin with. And I say to begin with because through the course of the 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, she becomes probably the best Jedi that has ever been featured in a Star Wars feature, let's say, because we'll call Clone Wars a feature. She is so good, her character has become so good, in fact, that as we all know, or those of us that have seen The Mandalorian, they introduced her into live action in the Mandalorian series, which I'll talk more about another time, I'm sure. Not only have they introduced into live action, but they've also spinning her off into her own series, which I, for one, cannot wait. But she ends up probably being the most Jedi that any Jedi has been during the course of the Star Wars movies and all the TV shows. I mean, I won't dribble on too much about it, but I really do want to sell this to people that if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, that this is not necessarily directed towards children. I mean, it deals with subjects like what it is to be a soldier in an army. Do you follow orders blindly, or do you make the morally correct choice? It deals with the Jedi, and were the Jedi as pure and selflessly driven as people thought, or could they have been a major cause of the Clone Wars starting to begin with, and letting it continue? I mean, there's massacres, there's betrayals, there's all kinds of dark things that happen during the series, and just because it's wrapped up in an animated and cartoon-like package, it actually, I mean, some of my favourite episode arcs through the series. One in particular deals with a certain Jedi who has a tendency to throw his clone troopers into harm's way recklessly, with these reckless strategies, and there's a motivation behind it, which I shan't spoil, but suffice it to say, it leads to an incredibly dark place. And there's so much that goes on. I cannot sell it enough, and I'm probably not selling it well enough, but I would highly recommend any Star Wars fan who hasn't seen it, if you haven't already, get Disney Plus, start cracking on with the Clone Wars, because there is so much that comes afterwards as well, after the Clone Wars, but that I should talk about in another video. As a Star Wars fan, I was really gutted, because initially the Clone Wars ended with 6 seasons. It was finished at the end of during season 6, so it was part of the way through making a series 6. They decided Lucasfilm weren't going to make any more, and it kind of ended rather abruptly. And but thank you Disney for buying Lucasfilm, because Disney, whether you love them or hate them, I personally think that them getting the Star Wars franchise was a good thing, because it injected fresh life into it. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that road, but suffice to say, a lot of people were very rattled about Disney continuing the Star Wars franchises, but I actually think it's a good thing, mainly because those lovely people, they gave us Series 7, which was dubbed as the final season of the Clone Wars. And I will say, I'm not giving you any spoilers, but the last 4 episodes, if you're a Star Wars fan and if you enjoyed the Clone Wars as much as I did and still do, the last 4 episodes of the final season is just magnificent. It's beautifully done, it's a beautiful story, and it ties just magnificently into what the events of Revenge of the Sith. I would hold it on par. With the finale of the season 2 of The Mandalorian. And I love The Mandalorian. I'll talk about that on another video. I'm not going to go on about that. But it's brilliant. I've watched it several times, and it is superb. So just to kind of cap this video off, because I can go on and on and on about it. Yes, it's a cartoon. It's animated, but it deals with a lot of grown up and adult subjects. And it goes to very dark places, lots of adventure and action and mystery and intrigue, lots of intrigue actually. But I would highly recommend it to anyone, whether you be an adult, whether you be a younger person watching this video. I would go and watch it. If you're a big fan of Star Wars, go watch it. So yeah, that was my video about the Clone Wars. I shan't dribble on and on and on and on about it because, let's face it, I can talk about Star Wars for a very long time. I'm certainly, these few minutes isn't really given justice to how good I think the Clone Wars is, and thousands of others. But yeah, so thank you for your first trip into Gekes Cantina. Hopefully we can sip a few beverages and toast the everything geeky. Thank you very much.